Thank you for coming to Smart Circle Podcast. Catch the pot, oil and gas. Thank you for coming on the show. So I preserve this information that I really want to get to know how you started running a successful business, which is the oil and gas sector. So, like, how did it all started? The storyline behind your business success. We as women, what we see is a success without knowing the hurdles and challenges it's most entrepreneurs had gone through before they succeeded. Most had failed multiple times before succeeding. So how did it all started? The storyline behind your business success.
I must say I'm grateful to, because it will help me use this opportunity, to talk more about life, business, and some challenges and facts about how one could start in a way that seems if it's not possible for the person to make it, and at a time you see that you can do more than you could ever imagine. I must tell you that business is something that gives you everyday opportunity. Unlike when you've been employed to work, whereby at the end of the month you are being paid a steady salary. When I finished school and got one job like that, which I'm being paid for, at a point, I see that this token is not sustaining me.
It's not sustainable
It's not
enough for you
sustainable for me to
meet up with your
meet
needs
up
and
with
other things.
my daily needs and still have something left out. So at a point, it was very hard for me because some risk are healthy, and it's very dangerous to take risk though. But for a man to refuse to take risk is risky at the same time. So I decided that maybe I have to save up with this my little salary and see if I could switch into business. At that point, it was like between devil and WC, because when you are not sure of what you are going into, and at the same time you have to do that, it's not that easy.
Okay.
So, and as I'm going through all this, I started having problems with where I'm working, because this time around it's either I came late or I even miss work sometimes. So at that point, I dropped. When I dropped, and the little
Out of your
capital
job.
out of my job, and the little capital I have will not be able for me to start anything. I was once a bus conductor.
Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
I started doing whatever in order for me to raise money, even if it's a small capital, for me to start up a business. And the lucky fact about it is, where I did my NYSC, we were opportunity to visit gas stations, and we've been there for some time. We've been seeing how to do all those small works concerning how gas refilling and cylinders and other things. And meanwhile, that in my past years in the universities, I studied industrial mathematics.
Okay.
And when you talk about science, science is very broad.
It's encompassing.
And it will tell you more about life. All these our day-to-day activities, science is what is telling you about all these things. So at that point, I now feel like I have now have a way, somewhere to beckon to. So when I struggled as a and worked as a bus conductor, I was able to raise little money with the little I saved while working. So with this money now, I had to go and buy little things. Like I started with 2 cylinders, a scale, and I had to look for somewhere I will stay and pay for. Could you imagine? I couldn't pay for even a year rent that time.
Accommodation, you couldn't afford for.
I couldn't
Whoa.
afford for a year. I begged, and the person was able to allow me pay for 3 months. So I started very small. And you know, one problem in life is that at times you feel that inferior, that you cannot do this until you try
You try
and see that you are even more capable of you ever realized. I never knew I can do that well in that business. And another thing is steadiness and sincerity in whatever you are doing. Because there is a book I read back then when we were at school that tell you that honesty is the best policy. And you have to be true to whatever you are doing, even in your business. People will like you and they will patronize you. And mind you, I started very small. But trust me, today, God has done it for me. At least I can be able to base of 3 branches of that mini black market gas depot.
Okay.
And I was able to even include POS transactions with them. This earning me little money at the same time, joined with what I'm doing. You see? So
That means you have successfully, but before you started, you struggled a lot to the extent that you couldn't afford your accommodation. You
yes,
had problem with your previous job, which wasn't giving you what you wanted, including financially and including in your finances and freedom. Then,
yes,
secondly, you had to be into transit for you to save up some
gather
money.
some money to add up to the one I had already.
Okay, now after the struggle, you navigated. Then, right now, you are able to build streams of income in one particular business, which is the oil and gas sector.
Yes.
How were you able to come up with these strategies for you to navigate your way out of challenges while you're trying to set up a business for yourself?
Number one, from this your question now, it will take me back to something I must tell you. Like, to me personally, I have always learned and know that in this life, we are into now, you have to be always assertive and optimistic in whatever you do. Even if you are frying akara now, or your life is being based on all these side table hawking business and all these things. If you are very assertive and optimistic and steady, consistency, you could be able to make out something you do not expect from that. But you see, most people, as far as they have not gotten job in an oil company or in the CBN, they will just take that as nothing,
For
granted. But trust me, when I started this, even nobody knows it will go this far. But due to my consistency,
your assertiveness,
and secondly, in any business you are doing, once your service outshines your expenses, you will be going up. But once your expenses outshines your service, trust me, one day you just lock up the whole thing and go away. So in these days, I was very articulative, because knowing that I started small, I have to minimize my expenses. You see, I make sure that most of my profit and other things I save. I even the remaining thing for me is to even save my daily my daily bread that time, because I was very very strict, disciplined, and maintained steady service. And it's from this service now that you will come up one day and see that 200 naira you are taking for granted has turned into thousands in some months.
the power of little.
Yes, and from there you can you can see add it up to something and get something bigger. You see? So at that point, there is so many challenges facing trying to pull through poverty, and let me say the bond between poverty and success is very tight, and you break it when you go extra miles. That's why they say that success is like biting more than you can chew, because before you get that which other people do not get, you have to try extra harder. And it's at that point of trying extra harder that most people quit. But when you are focused and you are looking for long run success, you do not have to quit. Because they say that in as much as quitters do not win, and the winner do not quit, a man who keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect to win someday is a dreamer.
Whoa.
Is a dreamer. And at this point now, in our society today, you see that almost half of the populations are confused. Confused in the sense that you see someone who has not been able to take care of himself or pay her bills and other things, and you see another person who is even more on the right track, trying to emulate the person. And it's at that point I will always tell people that you do not have to listen to society talks or advice, because most of them do not know what they are doing. And at the same time, in this life, whatever you want, you work for it. You do not wait for everything to come in a platter of gold. Okay. You have to stand up. Like on this Xmas now, you see some people spending even their capital with their doing to run their business in the sense of trying to show off, to make people see them, know that they are big guys and other. And after that, they will have to start at the beginning again. And it's not good. You don't have to spend beyond your income or trying to do anything to patronize anybody, whereby you know that on the long run you suffer for that. You plan yourself very well before you execute anything. Like on this Christmas now, people, you know that your rent is coming up on January, your shop, you know, pay for the rent. The little capital you have, the profit you have is not even up to pay for your annual rent where you are living. You are going for Xmas. You go there, you spend everything, you came back frustrated. And that is the angle where I love education in a way, because an average man who is educated will always think rational, in the sense that they say that if you fail to plan, you have planned to fail. Before you do anything, you have to plan for it. Like in this my business, when I started small and the business was going and I was able to save little money, if I don't have that mindset of to grow, I could have used that money and start flexing, going to clubs and other things. But I said no. As I have one shop now, and if I have one shop now and I'm making 100 naira, that means if I have two, I will not be making 200 naira. That is my mindset. And I say, okay, the idea now is to start looking for another place to be doing this same business. Because and if I make it now, that means my profit will be doubled. You see the idea? So when
the catchy thing here, that is something you said. You said you deprived yourself of pleasure.
Of pleasure.
In order for you to succeed.
First.
Yes. Like you say, you deprive yourself of going to clubbing,
flexing, even buying myself, because my second investment was up to buying a car.
Whoa.
And showing myself around the street and forming big boy. But I said, no, all these are just short-time pleasures. I need an everlasting something that could make my life stable. Because trust me, once you break that yoke between poverty and success, you get that pleasure for your whole life. That's why a white man will tell you business before pleasure.
Pleasure.
But most people meant it to be once you've started, it's now pleasure. No, you have to make sure that you're stable first. You have to be stable. Stable in the sense that financially, nothing will shake you again. You see? So at that point, when I see that money is there and is equally enough for me to open up another branch, I go ahead once, and by God's grace, I got what I want. And with that now, my profits now doubled. And before you could know it, I was able to establish another branch again, making it 3 now.
Whoa.
And the idea continued because I still have so many investments in mind to establish.
Okay.
You see, because in my whole life, I've always believed that from little you can get whatever. Because at times you may even see somebody, for example, his father is a governor. He gave him 100 million to start up a business and all this and all that, due to the fact that the person do not know the value of expansion or from starting from scratch and building something. Before you could know it, the whole millions will disappear because he do not know how to nurture. Because it's to nurture. That is the key fact in business.
Wow.
You understand?
Okay.
You have to nurture something, water it, even in a garden. That flower, you must water it for it to grow. Once it grows now, from the branches you can cut and say plant other places now and get majority of what you want. You see? And with this now, I will equally be pleasure to talk about some key facts that have always given me that courage and confidence to be pursuing through all these goals I've just talked about. Number one is that when you talk about failure, failure is not one who has failed, but one who believes he will fail.
Okay. Oh.
Believe me, in any condition, whoever person is right now is not in your permanent position. Even when that business has collapsed finally, that is not the end point. You can still rise depending on your mentality and the notion you have about business. The only thing you have to do is to correct all these places you've tried and it didn't work out. You replace them and you see a different result. Number two is that seeing opportunity, because at times opportunities might look dangerous, look sinking, but when you face them, you see a different result. When you face them, you see a different result. You don't run away from risk. Because sometimes most risk transform your life.
Whoa.
From even good to better, or from better to best, unless you work for it.
Wow.
And that is where my saying comes in when I tell you that there is no right time in this earth as far as I'm concerned. If you wait for the right time, you waste your entire life and nothing will happen. Whatever you want, rise up and face it. And if it's truly what is going to be yours, in no due time, you see and you will be smiling. I will be happy if I'm invited again.
Okay.
I have some other packages I will let my listeners know about achieving success, starting something small, and seeing it big in no due time. And the reason why I chose business over working as employee.
Okay.
You see? Over working as employee. Business gives you everyday opportunities. You can have an opportunity to earn 1 million today in business, but while you are working and you are being paid, all this opportunity goes to the person owning the business or the firm you are working for. All he or she knows is that your peanut salary he or she is paying you. Even when the business earns 10 times of what they always earn, they will still pay you your normal salary.
That's true.
But in business, sometimes you get 10 times of what you get before. You use that to enrich yourself and still expand.
For expansion and augment your business too.
And go beyond what you expect.
Before we come to an end of this section, there's this particular thing I want to know. I'm curious about to know. Okay.
Yes.
They say that poverty, being poor or remaining poor,
Yes.
versus becoming successful or rich is decisive or rather a decision. How can you justify that?
Let me throw light on that. I will tell you, to remain poor or to be successful is a decision per se, in the sense that for you to have that mentality that you cannot be rich, have already tell you that you've decided. Because when you have all those things that could get you out of poverty, and you are still there thinking that you cannot, after all, I can't do this, I can't do this, that is a canker one. Because anybody that is healthy and can lay his or her hand in a little money to start up whatever is a potential rich man.
Oh,
Is a potential rich man. I will tell you that to be rich and to be poor is in your mentality, not in what you are seeing. Because before you become rich, you must think rich. And for you to become poor, your thinking is very poor. You see? Because when you know that if I'm doing this, I'm saving this little money, if I put it up, I will still use it and grab something that will yield me bigger than what I'm having. But all these things is that true success will always require little time for it to be matured and be ready. But you know, in our society today, everybody wants to start a business or do something that will earn him million under a little while. In a month, or nobody wants to start up a business that we stay for like 3 years and start expanding and stay working hard 5 years before it becomes successful. Everybody wants to make it under a year. Under a year or 6 months. Let me be riding flashy car, building houses up and down.
Becoming successful within 1 year is linear. Like,
it's very lean. And the funny part of it is that seeing it through itself, you see it in some illegal businesses.
okay,
Because for you to do a legal something and attain success, you must work it out.
pass through the process.
Pass through process. Every legal business has due process. Like on this my own now, I was able to get the second branch after a year of struggling, working hard, watering it, nurturing it, and putting all the effort. Then, because of say my profit has been doubled, I was able to expand again under 8 months, because I have the profit is now no longer coming from one shop. It's now coming from two
different places.
Two different places. So I must say that poverty is in your mentality, not in your blood.
Oh.
Poverty can never run in your blood, but on the way you think. Because there is and there is this book I read that summarizes with if you watch closely to people, you will only observe that the only difference between the rich and the poor is their perception.
Okay.
Perception in the way you see things. The way you see things, this rich man sees something, might not be the same way this poor man sees something. Something you see as a risk, another person will see as an opportunity. You see that? A place you see as a no-go area, another person will see as somewhere he or she would like to be all the time.
Okay.
You see? So poverty, to be poor or poverty, is in one's mentality. Because if you think well, you will see that you can break out of poverty with your little effort and mentality of knowing that big things comes out of piling up small things.